Mary Magna, Binster, Binge, Great Binge and Lesser Binge. Amazing.
What's amazing?
The names of our English villages, Watson. What foreigner reading these could ever think of us as stiff and sober-minded people? Bippery Cross, Birrer Crags, Bird Cherry Brook and Birding Peace Place, Burlston Junction.
When do we go?
Go where?
To Burlston Manor, Burlston, Sussex.
Whatever led you to believe that I'm interested in Sussex, Burlston, or Burlston Manor?
No doubt you saw the account of the rather gruesome murder of Squire John Douglas.
Quite so. The case has interesting features. But at the moment, I'm more interested in the fly fishing possibilities in the neighborhood of Burlston.
Ah, that will be the Arun. Runs within 2 or 3 miles of the manor house.
What manor house?
Burlston, the home of the late Squire Douglas.
Oh, yes, I remember. I believe he was quite a fisherman.
The moat is 40 feet wide.
40 feet wide? Well. Good Lord. He could probably fish from his bedroom window.
And when the drawbridge is raised, the place becomes an island. 4 hours after the bridge is raised, the body of Squire Douglas is found in his study with half his head blown off. That should appeal to you.
Fishing seems a safe business by comparison. Do you row a boat?
A boat? For fly fishing? Have you ever fished before?
Does this look like the equipment of an amateur?
Odd word.
Which?
Equipment. All the fishermen I've ever known talk about their tackle. What do you deduce from that, Holmes?
Obvious. Your fishing friends either lack experience or vocabulary. We deep-sea fishermen are in the equipment class. None of your nasty little bundles.
Yes, that gaff is far more suitable for a shark than a trout.
Do you really think so? No good for trout?
Well, it depends what trout you're after.
Oh, yes. Well, we must carry a tape measure.
A tape measure? What on earth for?
To measure our catch, of course. To measure our catch and throw back the little ones. A good rule in life, Watson. Always remember to throw back the little ones.
You think our prey will count as a big one or a little one?
Well, hardly as big as Squire Douglas lying dead in his castle, surrounded by his moat.
Holmes, you've been analyzing this case.
Well, you know, I haven't got enough data yet for analysis, really.
Do you think it could be an accident?
What, with a sawn-off shotgun? And the triggers of both barrels wired together?
Murder, eh?
Yes, possibly.
What do you mean by possibly?
Don't sit there, man. That may be opportunity knocking.
Oh. Come in.
Mr. Sherlock.
The fisherman.
Hold on! Oh, come on! Blowing me! No,
In there, boy. It's only a little one. Would you like it, Watson?
Would appreciate your view. Intriguing affair, Burlston Manor. Signed, Inspector MacLeod.
Ha! Please, English, for I'm utterly baffled. Help. Yeah, where is it?
Where's what?
Well, the tape measure, of course. Where is that tape measure?
Holding the fiddle case together, sir.
Fiddle? Violin case, boy. Oh, tell me, Watson, how are we off for trains?
Trains? Ah, yes. Now, let me see. Burlston. Yes, now, that would be the West Sussex Littlehampton Bognor line. Now, there's a 10:15. Now, that doesn't stop. Of course, it's a 12:3. That will get us in at 4:2 or 4:7. I say, I'd forgotten, actually.
You'd say you can't remember whether it's 4-2 or 4-7. Come, Watson, you're slipping.
Blimey. Does it keep all the times in his head?
Where else, of course? We are a nation of railway pioneers, my boy. Like a great many Englishmen before him, Dr. Watson restricts his reading to the Bible, the Times, and Bradshaw's Railway Guide to the British Isles.
Here, boy.
Man of the March Hares, that's what you two are.
I say, Watson, have you seen my weekend bag anywhere?
I suspect it's under the stairs. Mrs. Hudson got very tired of seeing it lying about.
Oh, good. Well, that means it hasn't been unpacked anyway.
I assume not.
Excellent. Then everything is ready. Oh, be a good fellow, would you, and dig out that bag and put it in the cab along with that tackle.
Why? Aren't you going to be here?
I have a little reading to do. Pick me up at the British Museum Library, say half an hour before the train leaves.
Now, look here, Holmes. This is no time to go reading. You'll miss the train.
I cannot vouch for the punctuality of Dr. Watson or the reliability of the company's steam engines, but I, for one, propose to be at Burleston Halt at 4:02 p.m. precisely. Or is it 4:07?
It was a nice piece of work, if I say so myself. The entire story hung on a spider's thread.
A spider's thread?
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds interesting, Inspector. Now perhaps you'll start at the beginning.
Simply stated. The castle, as you'll see, has a moat. And when it's up, as it was at the time of the murder, it's a sealed fortress.
Who was in the castle at the time of the crime?
The murdered man's wife, Mrs. Douglas, and a foreign friend, John Morell.
Just those two?
And the servants, but we've been able to rule them out completely.
And from your description of the house, it would have to be one of them. Either Mrs. Douglas, or this friend of hers, Morell, or both of them.
They tried to make it appear as though someone had broken into the house and then dived through the windows to swim the moat.
But you disproved that.
Completely.
How?
I'll tell you when we get there.
This murder weapon. A sawn-off shotgun, I believe.
An odd weapon, that. And a foreign gun, too. 3 letters on the barrel. P-E-N.
Aha, a larger P with a flourish over it, followed by a smaller E and N.
That's right.
Ah, the Pennsylvania Small Arms Company, the famous American firm.
That's perfect. That's all I need.
You mean you need additional evidence?
Well, Mr. Holmes, every little helps, you know.
Then your case against Morell is not complete.
It's complete as far as... How did you know Morell is the murderer?
How did you know?
He has to be.
Why?
He's the only one who could be.
Suppose I were to tell you that Morell is not your murderer.
How do you know?
Yes, Holmes. How do you know?
Why didn't you arrest him?
Well, he doesn't act like a murderer.
Ah, he's too self-confident, eh?
That's right.
Seems to be daring you to arrest him.
Yes. How do you know all this?
Holmes, do you know this man Morell?
Fascinating. Fascinating. The case has suddenly assumed the most astounding proportions and the most astonishing challenge, Watson.
Specimen of the period.
Yes, it is lovely, isn't it?
What did you mean, Mr. Holmes?
Nothing. I just think it's a lovely building.
No, I mean when you said that Morell didn't murder Mr. Douglas.
Oh, that.
Yes, what did you mean? How do you know he didn't do it?
Well, if he didn't do it, she did.
You're jumping again, McCloud. You're jumping.
But it has to be one or the other.
Does it really?
What's he talking about?
Well, don't you know?
No, I don't know. If 2 people are in a sealed house with a murdered man, one of them has to be a murderer. That's common sense.
Ah, but is it logical?
What do you mean? Is it logical?
I don't know, but Holmes says that all the time. I was hoping you might be able to tell me.
He hasn't been moved.
That's just the way we found him last night.
Watson?
Of course, death was instantaneous.
I should say so.
The charge was not fired directly into the face, as the newspaper's account had it.
Uh-huh.
I'd say the blast came from below and that the gun was almost vertical.
Excellent, Watson, excellent. May I see this shotgun, McLeod?
Holmes, look at this.
Good Lord.
Wait, it's a brand like cattle.
Well, how old would you say it was?
Have you got your glass there?
Yes.
Thank you. It's very difficult to estimate marking like this, Holmes, but I'd say it's over 15 years.
20.
Mr. Morrell?
At your service, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson.
News travels quickly.
This is a small village.
You said 20 years?
Yes. The same age as this. It stands for the Mesa Valley, Arizona. Gold claim number 341. That is where John and I met 20 years ago. There were 3 of us. We registered the claim, worked it, and then sold it. We divided the money in thirds and went our different ways. 2 years ago, I looked John up here and stayed on. I liked it.
And the third partner?
He lost his money, and I believe his mind. He came to believe that we had cheated him. And he swore to kill us 10 years ago.
Why didn't he?
He couldn't find us. No, we didn't have the same names at that time.
Do you think your old partner could have done that?
I don't know, Mr. Holmes. I am not the detective.
True. True. Well, we must bear that in mind.
You tried to make it appear as though another man had been here and went out through the window.
Did I?
He tried to build an elaborate story. A man of his size was seen passing through the village wearing a loud tweed topcoat and a wide-brimmed hat. He was heading this way. On the window ledge, there is a footprint in blood, indicating, of course, that the murderer dived through the window and swam the moat. But he didn't.
How do you know?
Because, Mr. Morrell, outside that window and just a few feet down is a very large and at least a month-old spider's web. Anyone jumping or diving through the window would have to pass through the web. And no one did.
Well done, McLeod. Well done.
A spider's web.
The English police have the most amazing allies, I must say.
Now that you have made your deductions, Mr. MacLeod, exactly what do they mean to me?
For the moment, nothing. But I suggest you do not leave the castle grounds.
And if I try to live?
Well done, McLeod. You've certainly got your man.
But I'm not rushing in to make any arrest. I'm going to make sure the case is iron cast.
Oh, very wise. And what's the motive? Revenge for the Vermis Valley affair?
I've got to go a bit careful there, Doctor. If you ask me, it's a case of cherchez la woman.
Oh, what's he? Oh, is he the Douglas?
Well, you know how these things are, Doctor, between us, men of the world. We know how a situation like this can...
Oh, of course. Of course. Of course. Of course. Delicate situation, then.
Delicate.
Yes, delicate. Might almost be called the case of the other man. Hmm?
The other dumbbell.
Who?
Not who, what.
What?
That's right, what.
What are you talking about?
That. There's only one dumbbell.
One dumbbell.
That's right.
Well?
There's only one dumbbell, Watson.
I know. That's it over there.
Yes, where's the other one?
Well, I don't know. I've only just come here. Do you know where the other one is?
What difference does it make?
Well, that's right, yes. What difference does it make? Maybe there is only one dumbbell.
One dumbbell? But they come in twos.
Perhaps he only had one.
Watson, do you mean to tell me that you can stand there, surrounded by all these athletic trophies, and suggest to me that such a man would only use one dumbbell?
Well, what difference does it make?
Yes, what difference does it make?
Well, if you two are convinced that you can solve the case with the aid of a convenient spider, I'm going fishing.
You're what? Oh, he's going fishing. He's brought his tackle.
Why?
To catch fish.
Then I take it you're satisfied with my analysis of the crime.
Find the dumbbell.
Hang the dumbbell!
You can't hang him until you find him.
Who?
The man who took the dumbbell.
Gone too far now, Holmes. I think you've made him very angry.
Then he should fish. It soothes the nerves.
Are you really going to fish?
I am.
Where?
Out of that window. It looks very comfortable.
Well, what do you expect to catch?
A herring. A red herring. May I have the tape measure, Watson?
To measure a red herring?
To measure the big red herrings. The little ones I plan to throw back.
Holmes, you're up to something.
I am. What? Would you like to help?
Of course.
Well, look. Take the good inspector down to the local pub and keep him there for at least an hour.
While you fish for red herring?
At the moment, I'm fishing for bait.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll do it.
Good. Remember, 1 hour.
I may enjoy myself in the local and stay too. What do you think he's been doing?
There's no guessing with him. For all we know, he may really have been fishing.
Perhaps we should have given him more time.
He's been an hour. That's all he asked for.
Yes, that's right enough.
Inspector McLeod? Hello, Sergeant. Have you seen Mr. Holmes?
I certainly have, sir.
What's wrong?
You know the staircase in that room? Huh? Mr. Holmes was sliding down them banisters.
He was what?
That's right, sir. Sliding down the banisters he was.
Well, he was probably investigating something.
Probably.
Well, let's ask him. There must be some reason behind it.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Go on. Ask him.
Ask me what? Well?
What have you been doing while we were away?
Well, first I fished.
No.
And then I slid down the banisters.
I told you.
Why?
Why not?
Well,
And you, Inspector McLeod, are going to drain the moat.
I'm going to what?
Drain the moat. Empty it right down to the bottom.
I can't do that. That's a major engineering job. Don't you realize that's a real river that runs round the house?
Well, in that case, don't drain the moat, but tell everyone you're going to.
And then what?
Then we'll all meet back here in an hour's time.
and see if we can find somebody pulling something out of the moat.
Exactly.
What?
Red herrings.
As mad as a March hare.
much longer?
Not much. You're certain everyone believes they're going to drain the moat?
I don't know who believes it, but everyone knows I said it. Do you think someone will come to the murder room?
Someone has been in it for some time.
How do you know? The lights are out.
Because I left them on.
Look.
What? That's it. Let's go. Oh, excuse me. What are you using for bait? Oh, would you mind holding this? Thank you. What clothes did you say the stranger was wearing, McLeod?
A loud tweed topcoat and a wide-brimmed hat.
Like these?
The dumbbell. Holmes, how did you know?
When you're working near water, Watson, and a heavy object has disappeared, you may conclude, until you can prove otherwise, that it has been used to prevent some object from rising to the surface.
All right, Morrell. You're under arrest for the murder of John Douglas. It is my duty to warn you that anything you say may be taken down and used in evidence...
No, McLeod. You haven't got it at all.
What?
This gentleman didn't kill John Douglas because John Douglas isn't dead.
He isn't what?
Dead. The man whose body you discovered in here is the very man who came back to... No, you're not with me, are you, McLeod? Would you tell him, please?
These clothes belong to our third partner.
The man has been searching for you for 10 years.
Yes. He found us and arrived here with a shotgun. He and John struggled and the shot went off.
That explains the vertical angle of the blast. In the ensuing struggle, the gun went off.
I heard the report and ran down immediately.
I timed it from your room. 15 seconds if you run and 10 seconds if you slide down the banisters.
I ran.
I thought you would.
John was panic-stricken when he saw what he had done. I got the idea to change their identities.
But then where is Douglas?
With the aid of my tape measure, I was able to ascertain that there is a hollow space behind that wall. I imagine it conceals a passage under the moat.
Yes, Mr. Holmes, it does. And John has had a 36-hour head start.
We'll stop him.
I told him you would.
I'll issue orders for the apprehension of Mr. Douglas, and we'll talk about your part in this, sir, in the morning. You have conspired to conceal evidence.
I'll still be here in the morning, Inspector. A very brilliant piece of deductions, Mr. Holmes. An excellent application of applied psychology. I haven't been tricked many times in my life.
You must remember that the next time you become involved with murder.
And you can now continue your fishing in a more normal manner.
Fishing? No, I don't care for it, really.
Unless it's deep sea, of course.
Yes. But in the absence of an ocean in the immediate vicinity, I think we'd better start back to Baker Street immediately.
Well, now, there's a 9:13 or a 10:23. The 10:23 will hold us up at Tunbridge quite a while, while it waits to connect.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Not at all, not at all.
of the most unusual cases which Sherlock Holmes was ever called upon to solve began at a small private school for boys in the north of Belgium. The boys' dormitory at 4 in the morning, lighted by a full moon, looked quiet and peaceful. It would have been difficult to imagine that here began a train of events which filled 4 graves before it was stopped.
Gone out.
Didn't you try to stop him?
I called his name. Either he did not hear or pretended not to. I was afraid to startle him. It's you.
Is there nothing wrong?
No. Nothing, Antoine. Go back to sleep.
What are you going to do? The police?
It will be the end of my career. Should have to close the school.
Send the boy away?
Would that stop it?
I suppose not.
It's horrible. 3 deaths in 3 months. Each one foretold by the writing on the church steps.
I still think the police...
No.
But your own life.
I've never felt in better health. And if I'm careful to keep out of drafts and avoid falling downstairs.
How can you joke at a time like this? There's a man in London He's solved cases even more hopeless than this.
Sherlock Holmes?
You thought of him? Let me write to him.
And ask him to do what?
To come here, investigate. Find out who is responsible for those deaths and how a schoolboy can tell in advance who is next to die.
And have the school invaded? Our teachers questioned? Our boys terrorized? I'll do my own investigating, Mademoiselle Grande. In my own way.
Some weeks later, a letter arrived at Baker Street. Holmes read it over once to himself and then aloud to me.
Dear sir, it will be a source of eternal regret to me that I allowed myself to be dissuaded from writing to you sooner, Mr. Holmes. Now Mr. Carolan is dead of natural causes, the doctor says, though I am not sure he isn't mistaken. I pray that you will come to Arno without delay and lend us your assistance in putting an end to these ghastly occurrences. Respectfully yours, Marie Grande. You deduce that the writer of the letter was young?
I'll go further than that. I'm prepared to wager that she's madly attractive to boot.
Better and better. And what do you base these interesting conclusions?
Wishful thinking, my dear chap. Wishful thinking.
Then wish no more. She is both young and attractive, with hair the color of autumn honey.
Oh, did you read that between the lines?
No. This came with the letter. A lovely color, you'll admit, Watson. And from a beautiful young woman at that.
Now, come, Holmes. That's neither logical nor factual, and you know it.
You aren't the only one privileged to think wishfully, my dear Watson.
Bravo. So you're going to take the case?
Yes, and if you pack for us both, I'll arrange for tickets.
The boat train took us to Dover. By mid-morning the following day, Holmes and I were sitting in the headmaster's study at the Arno School in the presence of Mademoiselle Marie Grande, who was indeed extremely attractive, with hair the exact shade of autumn honey.
Then you're quite sure you've told me everything, Mademoiselle Grande?
That is only the matter of the old woman, but I don't think it's important.
Let me be the judge of that, mademoiselle.
Her name is Madame Soulet. She's a harmless, feeble-minded woman who sells charms and love philters for the ignorant. Some have called her a witch.
I see. And what is her part in this affair?
She admits she went to see those whose names were written on the church steps and offered to sell them some charms against the evil omen.
That's most interesting. Did any of the other victims purchase these charms?
I can only speak for Monsieur Carolin. He did not.
And what about the others? Were they persons of wealth?
No. Two were quite poor. The third one moderately well off. We have no really wealthy people here in Arno, Mr. Holmes.
Except, of course, the Count de Passevant.
You know the Count?
No, indeed. I only happened to pass a carriage on the way boasting his coat of arms. However, I should like to have a word with this Madame Soulet, if that can be arranged.
You have only to go to her house. It's on the edge of town, on the North Road. Monsieur Manelli, this is Monsieur Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson. Monsieur Manelli, our new headmaster.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Now that you're here, Mr. Holmes, we have hopes at last of getting to the bottom of this terrible affair.
Thank you, sir. I can only hope to do my best.
Mademoiselle Grande has given you all the facts?
All the facts at her command. Perhaps you can supply some additional ones.
I am sorry, no. Mademoiselle Grande was the favorite member of the faculty here. She had Monsieur Carolin's confidence, not I.
I see.
And now that I've had the honor of meeting you gentlemen, I hope you will forgive me if I go to meet my class.
But certainly.
By the way, mademoiselle, Dr. Dimanche is waiting in the vestibule.
Did you send for him?
Yes, I did. I'll go and fetch him. I'll be back directly.
But the boy, Holmes, the boy, you haven't asked to see the boy.
The boy can wait, Watson.
Yes, but why? Surely he's the most significant part of it.
No, because he did the writing on the church steps.
Why, yes.
Well, I suppose in that case you'd say that the chalk also had significance.
No, that was just an instrument.
Precisely, my dear Watson. Precisely.
Mr. Holmes, this is Dr. Dimanche. Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Delighted. How do you do, Doctor? Always happy to meet a colleague.
Thank you, so am I. I hope I haven't kept you waiting. I came as soon as I got Mademoiselle's message.
Won't you sit down?
Thank you. Mademoiselle Grant tells me that you're the physician who attended Monsieur Carolan shortly before he died.
Yes. My last examination of him gave me no hint of what was coming.
I see, and yet you're positive he died of natural causes.
There's no doubt about it.
I believe 3 other persons died recently in Arno, shortly after their names appeared on the church steps. Did you attend them also?
Arno is a small town. I'm fortunate or unfortunate enough to be the only doctor here.
Previous to your present fortune, or misfortune, you practiced in Paris, I understand.
I see Mademoiselle Grant has briefed you well.
I told nothing of your past, Doctor.
Then how do you know?
Well, you dress with the flair of a Parisian. And if you've been living here any length of time, I should imagine you would have acquired a more homespun costume.
I might have ordered these from Paris.
On the income of a country physician. What do you think, Dr. Watson?
Hardly likely, Holmes.
Capital, Mr. Holmes. Your powers of deduction have not been overrated. But you didn't ask me here to discuss my clothes or my income. How can I help you?
Dr. Dimanche, of what exactly did Monsieur Carolan die?
Heart failure.
Were you carried out a post-mortem?
There's no need. The signs were obvious.
I see. And you saw nothing suspicious, either in the case of Monsieur Carolan or of the other victims?
Not one thing, Mr. Holmes.
That's interesting. Perhaps you'd care to put forward a theory of your own as to the connection between the prophecies and the deaths.
I have no theory. The explanation lies either in the most extraordinary combination of coincidences or in some sort of provision on the part of the boy, Antoine.
Do you believe in prevision or telepathy?
Years ago, my professor at Salpêtrière did suggest there might be something in it. For myself, I don't know. I neither affirm nor deny.
Then I believe you can tell me nothing more for the present, Dr. Dimanche.
Don't hesitate to call on me again. Now I must go back to my surgery. I may have a patient waiting. You never can tell. I'll be here early tomorrow afternoon for the monthly examination, mademoiselle.
Dr. Dimanche examines your pupils every month, then, mademoiselle?
Yes. The health of our pupils is of the greatest concern to us.
And so it should be, Mademoiselle Grant. And so it should be. You know, it's an extraordinary thing, the odd and assorted illnesses that crop up in a boys' school.
Vous devriez être en classe à cette heure au lieu de courir dans les couloirs. Allez maintenant. That is he.
So that's the boy who on 4 separate occasions was able to foretell the death of a citizen of Arno.
Well, there must be some logical explanation for it.
There is, Watson, there is.
Holmes, do you know how it was done?
Yes, that part was simple. Our main difficulty will come when we try to prevent the 5th murder.
Turn to the case of the deadly prophecy. The church on whose steps the deadly prophecies were written stood less than 100 yards from the school. I had supposed that Holmes, with his usual attention to detail, would want to examine it thoroughly, but once again he surprised me. He did not stop. And I had a fair guess that perhaps he wanted to have a little talk with a certain Madame Soulet.
Come in.
Madame Soulet?
Come in, come in. I was expecting you.
I thought you would be.
Sit down.
Thank you. Do you know why I've come to see you?
For help, naturally.
Score one to her, Holmes.
Let's call it information.
Trifling bits of information such as how came the boy by his deadly prophecies? Whose hand was it made them come true?
Suppose we start with a bit even more trifling. You offered charms to the victims. But how did you know who they were before they were struck down? There were no announcements made.
If the Englishman will cross my palm with English gold,
You'll tell me?
I will give the Englishman a filter, warranted to make him see so clearly and think so lucidly that all mysteries will be revealed to him. Each is as potent as the belief of the one who buys and uses it. If those four had bought instead of turning me away, who knows?
But they did turn you away.
And now all are dead. May I sell you a filter, sir? It will guard you against harm.
Come, Watson.
Good day, Madame Soulet.
You are a wise man. You say little and listen well. Good day to you, sir.
Filters, bosh. We might be living in the Middle Ages.
Not the Middle Ages, Watson. Merely a small European village. Ah, Count Passivar, I believe.
Oui, monsieur. How do you know?
I saw you in your carriage, sir.
Ah, are you enjoying your stay in our village, Mr. Holmes?
Do you know me, Count?
I saw you from my carriage.
Ah, bravo, Count. As you say in France, touché. May I introduce my very good friend, Dr. Watson?
Enchanté, docteur.
How do you do, sir?
Have you formed any conclusions, Mr. Holmes, as to the names that were written on the church step?
Well, at the moment, Count, I must confess that I am more interested in the names that were not written on the church step.
Mine hasn't been written on it yet.
And I don't believe it will be.
Tell me, sir, you know this village. Have you any ideas?
I am not superstitious, Dr. Watson. I do not believe...
You're not superstitious, Count?
Madame Soulet's filter, at least, can do no harm.
Good day, monsieur. Good day. There were a few points about this case which Holmes thought could best be cleared up in Paris. He had asked me to go alone as the following night there would be a full moon, and he wanted to stay in Arno to be on hand just in case.
What is it? What's happened?
Nothing at all, Antoine. You were walking in your sleep. Now be a good boy and get back to bed.
I can't. There's something I must do.
Not tonight. Not tonight, Antoine.
Yes, sir.
What does it mean?
It means that nothing further will happen tonight. Sleep well, Mademoiselle Grand.
The carriage came to fetch me at the station. Later, I found Holmes at the school.
Well, you may go back to your class now, Antoine. Well, Watson, did you have a successful trip?
Yes, you were right.
Good.
Mr. Holmes, was the boy able to tell you anything?
No, but his silence was eloquent. Oh, by the way, I should like to have the use of the headmaster's study for a little gathering shortly before midnight.
You'll name the murderer?
No, he will name himself.
It's almost midnight, Mr. Holmes. Must we wait much longer?
Ah, good evening, Count. I think you all know Count Bassivon. Count, you met Dr. Watson in front of Madame Soulet's cottage. Would you be so good as to take that chair, Count? I expect you're all wondering why you've been invited here at such a late hour this evening. Well, we are concerned with the murder of Monsieur Sherlock and of 3 other citizens of Arno before him.
Mr. Holmes are sure they died natural death.
I happen to believe that they were murdered. Now, the question is, with what motive? Profit? But these were ordinary people of modest means. The murderer could scarcely hope to enrich himself at the cost of their lives. Now, a thought occurred to me, and I decided to go and see Count Bassivon and ask him if his life had been threatened too.
It has been.
And this is the feature of the case that most intrigues me. Blackmail has often been the prelude to murder, but here, for the first time, murder became the prelude to blackmail. What was demanded of you, Count?
100,000 francs.
And if you didn't pay?
My name was next to appear on the church steps.
So you see, extortion was the motive from the first. And to that end, an atmosphere of terror was built up by means of 4 successive murders. It would take a man of superhuman courage to resist.
But, Mr. Holmes, the names were written by one of our pupils. What possible connection could an 8-year-old boy have with such a scheme?
Yes, Antoine. Just an unwitting tool.
Of whom? The blackmailer must be someone who could have poisoned 4 people.
Don't distress yourself, Madame Soulet. The killer meant suspicion to fall on you. But a person of your simple habits wouldn't play so dangerous a game. No. There is a suspect close at hand, who not only had an expert knowledge of poisons, but to whom the boy has been far more accessible. Accessible regularly once a month. This suspect was once a pupil of Dr. Charcot, who lectured on hypnotism at Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris. It would have been as easy for him to send Antoine on his monthly errands as to wind up a mechanical toy. Dr. Watson.
Yes?
Yesterday in Paris, you made certain inquiries into the character and education of this suspect. What did you discover?
I discovered that he was a spendthrift and a wastrel who had quit Paris in order to escape his creditors.
It's a lie.
Calm yourself, Dr. Dimanche. I, too, have dabbled in hypnotism. This morning, Antoine and I had a little talk. I suggested that he come down here at midnight and point out the person who instructed him to write on the church steps. The person he was instructed not to remember when out of the hypnotic trance. It lacks but 1 minute to 12 now.
Stay where you are, all of you.
Don't be a fool, Doctor. When I visited your office this afternoon to look over your stock of drugs, I took the very ordinary precaution of emptying the cartridges from your gun.
Should we wait for the boy to make the identification, Mr. Holmes?
Mademoiselle, Mr. Holmes's deductions are always completely truthful and completely accurate. But the methods by which he achieves these ends are not always so straightforward. He said that he'd hypnotized the little boy to have him come here tonight at midnight.
How did you know it was a bluff?
You also said that the gun was unloaded.
Oh.
I'd say it's a bit early, Holmes. You expecting anybody?
No, boy. No, not.
Well, good morning, Mr. Holmes. Oh, am I glad to see you. Yeah, I'm sorry to come barging in on you like this, but I'm in trouble. See, the situation's a bad one. Oh, it's a real stinker. I'm in dead trouble. Now, you be careful how you handle that. That's a brand new tit for. See, now, you'll understand when I explain it to you, see? Now, my name is Harry Croker, and I'm chin-deep in trouble. Right up to there. Oh, if my poor old grandmother could only see me now.
My name is Dr. Watson. This gentleman is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes, you're the only man who can save me. Now, you've got to do something to save me, see? Everything depends on you, you see? My life, my career, my future, the lot. Yes, well, it all depends on you, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, but what save you from what, Mr. Crocker? Well, if you can find the time, perhaps you'd like to sit down.
Yeah. Thank you. No. Murder, I'm afraid.
What?
Yes, I've been accused of murder.
No.
Me? Yeah, and I wouldn't harm the air on a fly's head. Not even on a beaten fly. Yeah, I faint when I see blood. And they go and accuse me of murder. You know, Mr. Holmes, now, look, you're a man of intelligence and capacities and appetites like... See, you're a man of education.
Crocker? Did you say Harry Crocker?
Yes, that's right. Here, perhaps you've seen me perform at the local vaudeville theatre. Escape artist extraordinary. No bolts, chains, or shackles can contain me. Just like it says on the billboards.
Yes, I'm sure.
Mr. Crocker, who is accusing you of murdering what?
Who? Well, the police.
What?
Yeah, they come right in and they say, "You're guilty, Harry Crocker." Aye. And then they whisk me away without saying another word. Mark you.
I say, Holmes. Yeah. This man is a fugitive from the law.
Yeah, is there a picture of me in there? Is it any good? I hope it's my right profile. It's the best. Oh, hey, what do you think of that?
It says here that you allegedly killed a young chorus girl named Sally King last night.
Killed? I tried to get rid of her.
I should say that amounts to the same thing. It also said that you were taken into custody by the police.
That's right, yeah, that's what I said. But then, you see, I decided I had to go and see Mr. Holmes. And so, I left.
Huh? You left?
Yes.
Well, how? Look here, Holmes, this man might be dangerous.
Yes, but no. Don't worry about that, Dr. Watson. Easy-going Harry Crocker, that's what they call me. Always a smile and a song when things go wrong. Eh?
It's the police. They surrounded the house.
He's probably after me. I just stuck in there for a moment so as not to embarrass you gentlemen.
You already have. We're not in the habit of harboring fugitives.
I wouldn't dream of asking you gentlemen to do anything that was contrary to your conscience. No, I wouldn't do that.
All right, Holmes, you were seen coming in here. You're treading on thin ice. Very thin ice.
Oh. And what have you to say to this?
I don't really know, Inspector. No, it's not my style at all. But if you really want the owner, he's in that...
Thank you, Holmes. I had a bad moment there.
Harboring criminals, obstructing the police in the execution of their duties, giving false statements to the police.
That's remarkable. Truly remarkable. Well, I must say, that fellow has the most remarkable flair for disappearing, Watson. Don't you agree?
Well, I'd prefer he'd practice somewhere else.
Inspector, what's the case against Harry Crocker?
He's a murderer. As if you didn't know.
Yes, you inferred as much, didn't you? But what are the facts, my dear fellow?
He's a performer at the Empire Music Hall. Last night he left with one of the chorus girls.
This Miss Sally King?
Yes, that's right. Short time after that, she was found in the alley, dead, strangled.
I see. I'd say you had a pretty slim case, you know.
The stage doorkeeper heard them quarreling on the way out. And a newspaper boy has testified to the fact that Crocker came out of the alley alone. Not so slim now, is it?
I think Lestrade's got the right man this time, Holmes.
And Crocker denied all this?
Not at all. He's admitted the truth of every statement, point by point.
Well, then I don't see what all this...
Here, wait a minute. Here, we had a quarrel, all right. Yes, we quarreled. But I never killed her, so may I drop dead.
Well, where on earth did you come from?
Well, Mr. Crocker, let me be the first to congratulate you. Absolutely inspired. Now, tell me, how did you do it? How did you manage it, eh? Yes.
Oh, simple. See, all you have to learn, Mr. Holmes, is a few basic tricks on my business, and the rest is chicken's feed.
Professor! You're under arrest for murder, Crocker. I won't warn you any more of your tricks and I'll be the worst for you. I promise you that.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes, see, Mr. Holmes, that girl was only trying to capitalize on my publicity. Of course. You know, I gave her a smile maybe once or twice, but you know how these floozes are. But that's all. That's absolutely...
Yeah, take him away and try and keep hold of him this time.
Hey, Mr. Holmes, please, you're going to do... You must do something for me, Mr. Holmes,
We'll do our best, Mr. Crocker, but you better go quietly now. You go quietly, will you?
Quietly?
Yes.
All right. But don't forget, will you?
I shan't.
You won't forget.
No, I
You
shan't.
promise?
Don't worry.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Hey, Mr. Holmes, you won't forget me now, will you? You'll do your best to save me, won't you? Please, promise. Well, I could put old grandmother going to see me now.
I'm warning you officially, Holmes. Don't interfere with this.
That's really remarkable, Watson. Absolutely remarkable. Have you any idea how possibly he could conceal himself in that closet?
Don't push Lestrade too far, Holmes. He's been after your hide for a long time.
Yes. Would you care to accompany me to the music hall tonight, Watson?
Why, are you on the trail of something, Holmes?
Several things. First of all, I should like to know why Harry Crocker killed this woman, if he did. And if he didn't, why should anybody want to make out that he did?
No, I think Lestrade's got the right man this time, Holmes.
You really? Well, we shall see. We shall see.
Holmes?
Later that afternoon, Holmes and I went along to the Empire Music Hall. Not to be entertained, mind you, though I dare say the day gave promise of that. We stopped for a moment to chat with the news vendor who repeated the story he had told Inspector Lestrade. He had been standing on that very spot the previous evening when Harry Crocker passed him coming from the stage door exit. Crocker had definitely been alone, and what's more, he'd been in a temper. I must say Holmes did little to break down the fellow's story.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yes, indeed. I've heard of you, Mr. Holmes. My name's Charlie Willis. I suppose you've come about poor Harry Crocker's trouble.
Yes, I have. Tell me, is there any other exit from backstage to that alley out there?
Oh, none, sir. The only other way out is round through the front of the house.
Then anyone going from this area to that alley would have to pass your desk on the way.
Yes.
I presume you remain on duty throughout all performances?
Well, I know what you're getting at, sir. But like I told the police, as soon as Harry walked out, this girl came chasing after him. Ooh, buzzing like a hornet she was.
And where did you see her next?
Oh, not until Miss Zaza came screaming back through that door. I ran out and found the girl lying there, dead.
Then I understand that neither Mr. Crocker nor Miss King returned through that door last night after you saw them leave.
I'm afraid that's it, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Holmes, I'm afraid Inspector Lestrade has got his foolproof case.
Granted, of course, that the inspector himself is foolproof. Miss Zaza, where might she be found now?
Oh, the girl's dressing room.
Which one?
Oh, they all use the same one. It's the second door on the left, down there. Better knock before you go in.
Oh, we shall, sir, I assure you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willis. Good afternoon. Watson.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be of service to you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Well, what is it?
Oh, excuse me, madam. I'd like to have a word with Miss Zaza. Is that good?
It can't possibly. She's busy. We have a show to do, you know.
Yes.
Ah, here I come in my gonfalon. La 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 la. Carry on, lad.
Well, hello.
Mr. Holmes, I knew you would let me down. Even Dr. Watson, it was a real pleasure to see you again.
Yes, but Crocker, the police.
I expect they'll be along soon.
But how did you get away this time?
Gave me a twist and a twirl. And while they're looking one way, I go up the other. Mr. Holmes, have you cleared me yet?
Well, not quite yet, Harry, but it'd be easier if we could have a word with Miss Zaza. But unfortunately, some old busybody in there won't let us in.
Oh, Bessie?
Yes.
You wait a minute, huh?
Right in, gentlemen. This is a most uncomfortable business, Holmes. Really, Oh, I beg your pardon.
Gentlemen, this is Miss Zaza, singer extraordinary. Now, Fanny, tell Mr. Holmes everything he wants to know. And don't be shy.
All right, Harry. What would you gentlemen like to know?
Oh, well, we're sorry to inconvenience you, Miss Zaza, but,
That's all right.
I understand it was you who first discovered Miss King's body.
Yes, I did. It was just horrible. One minute she was standing here next to me, right where you are now, Mr. Holmes. I could touch her. And the next, oh, it was just horrible.
Yes, of course, it must have been. Then you were here when Miss King came off the stage last night, is that right?
Of course. She came in here very angry and in a very big hurry. She tore up her costume. Excuse me. Then she put on her clothes and she ran right out again.
I see. Was she in a hurry to meet Mr. Crocker?
Was she? I don't want to repeat what she said. You understand?
Oh, of course not. I quite understand. Then, just to be quite certain, she rushed in here to change her clothes, and then she...
Put on a locket.
Locket?
Ah, here, gentlemen! Don't let him get away this time!
What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing, you, eh? Eh? You let me go. You let me go. What do you think you're doing? Let me go! Here! Guards! Save me! Here! You're arresting an innocent man!
I thought I'd find a bunch of you here together. You'll have a great deal of explaining to do, Holmes.
I should be delighted to, Lestrade, but first let Miss Zaza finish what she was about to tell me.
What does she know about it?
I was only going to say that Sally wore a locket that Harry gave her when we first opened here. She couldn't wear it during the show, but she always put it on immediately afterwards.
Locket? What's all this about a locket?
A little trinket. It didn't amount to a thing.
Did this Miss King wear this locket last night before she left the theater?
Oh, yes, always. She said she wouldn't be caught dead without it. Oh.
Oh. Did you find this locket on the body, Lestrade?
He hasn't changed since last night. We haven't been able to hold him long enough to search.
Here, I can explain all this, Inspector. I can explain everything because I'm innocent, you see. I'm innocent.
Oh, poor Harry. Why did you murder her?
And now, we return to the case of Harry Crocker.
Don't usually get morning visitors around here, even with police permission.
Here's the little lady. I see. And the clothes she was wearing, have you got them?
Yes, sir. Won't be a minute.
Thank you.
Obviously strangled.
From the position of the finger marks, it appears she was facing her assailant.
Yeah.
Yet her fingernails, which are rather long, show no signs of a struggle.
I don't follow you, Holmes.
Holmes! Did you see what you did? You didn't try to fight me or beat me off. You merely pushed my hands away.
Yes, that's right.
Why?
Well, I didn't want to strike you.
Why?
I didn't want to injure you.
But I was choking you.
I didn't take that seriously.
Exactly.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, you didn't take me seriously because you know me too well. But say my attack had come at the end of a savage argument.
Well, that would have been different.
Ah, now you're getting to it, Watson.
By Jove, Holmes, you mean that the girl in Crocker had had a savage argument, she'd have clawed his face?
Yes, but she didn't.
Then whoever attacked her, she knew very well. And Harry Crocker's telling the truth.
And the problem becomes who is lying.
Here they are, just like they come off her.
Oh, that's very good of you, but I don't think we shall need them now. And thank you very much for your assistance. Good day.
Where are we off to, Holmes?
Well, we're going to the theatre, where I believe we will provide what they call an added distraction.
Oh, Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson. The police have just been asking for you.
Well, where have you hidden this time? Hidden him?
Harry's obviously escaped again. He's a most extraordinary fellow, isn't he, this
If you're responsible for this, Holmes... Now, look here, Inspector. Holmes and I have only just arrived here. And after all, it isn't the first time he's given you the slip, is it?
I'm surprised at you, Dr. Watson. A man of your professional reputation and military background. I'm surprised at you.
An excellent portrait of the late Miss King, what, Holmes?
In happier times, Watson.
What's on her? What, not again, Harry?
No bobbers around, I hope. And I think I ought to warn you, Inspector Lestrade is waiting outside.
Well, I had to drop in here to give him the slip. Do you know, I never have been able to work out this trunk trick. Now, my father was a wizard. Yeah, good thing you happened to come along.
It's a fascinating business, Harry. Do you mean to say it's possible to get out of one of these baskets unaided?
Oh, my father did it twice a day on the stage. Used to have exhibitions where they locked him inside and threw him in the river. And up he'd come, free and smiling. Great sport, the old man. Bless his soul.
He's passed on, then?
Last time they threw him in the river.
I thought so. Get him!
Hey, let me go. Here, what are you doing? Here, come on, here, what are you doing? I'm an innocent man, I am. Here, what are you doing? Here, listen, Inspector, listen, please. You're gonna believe me, I'm an innocent man. I never killed that girl, Inspector. I took her out after the show once or twice with a drink, and then we were dancing a bit, and that's all I...
I'm going to put you where I can keep an eye on you. You've slipped for the last time, my slippery little man.
Hey! Here! Let me go! Take it off!
Oh, just one moment, Inspector. Tell me, Harry, did Miss King join the show in Manchester, or had you met her before that?
No, she joined up in Manchester. I never saw her before that. Stage-struck kid, you know the type.
Wait a minute, Holmes. How did you know about this girl being in Manchester?
Well, all her clothes had Manchester shop labels. And this portrait of her was both drawn and signed in Manchester, as you will notice by the date, May 1897. Oh, Harry, I've had a certain amount of experience with lockpicking, in a purely amateur way, you understand. Now, I wondered, do you suppose that this little piece of wire of 3/16 diameter would in any way manipulate this lock? Say we inserted it through here like this, and then bent the loop.
That's a good idea. That
Wait a minute, Holmes. Nonsense like that at a time like this. Take him out of here. Hey! Hey!
Excuse me, Inspector.
Here, hold on to him. Hold on to him, see? No, not like this. No, like this. With both hands, you understand? With both hands.
No. Hey, Mr. Holmes!
That is the end of the Harry Crocker case.
But Holmes, I do beg your pardon. I didn't notice that you...
It was my fault, Dr. Watson. Oh, look, I spilled my makeup on your coat.
Yes,
I'm terribly
of course,
sorry, sir.
that's it, and don't apologize, young lady. We're all indebted towards you.
I beg your pardon?
You've just proved that Harry Crocker couldn't possibly have murdered Miss King. Here, Lestrade, ask Harry to come over here, would you?
What do you want now, Holmes?
Well, let's settle that. So now, Harry, perhaps you'd run through that trunk escape for me, eh?
Oh, no, you don't, Holmes. This is far from settled. Far from settled.
I must say, Holmes, that even I find it difficult to follow your reasoning.
You do, Watson? About what?
about murder, Holmes. A girl has been murdered.
That's certainly true, Lestrade. And if I were you, I'd devote more time to apprehending the real criminal and stop annoying Mr. Crocker here.
That's right, that's right. You stop annoying me. See, you stop annoying me.
Now, look here, you.
Excuse me, please. Willis?
Yes? Did you want me, Mr. Holmes?
Not I, Mr. Willis. But I believe Inspector Lestrade does. For murder.
I don't understand, Mr. Holmes.
Then let me explain a little, Mr. Willis. First, there is the obvious connection between you and Miss King. Both of you lived for a number of years in Manchester.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that
The girl's clothes and picture came from Manchester. She joined the show there, her first job as an entertainer. Mr. Willis here wears a Manchester school badge. His desk is covered with clippings of a Manchester cricket team, showing a loyalty of long attachment. And if you require anything further, well, he's just admitted it himself. I'd wager, too, that you were instrumental in getting her a job with this company.
Well, what if I did? She could dance a little. She was very pretty, and...
And you thought she was throwing away her prettiness on Mr. Crocker.
Well, I advised her against seeing him, yes. After all, I felt responsible for finding her a job in the company.
Not responsible, Mr. Willis. Jealous. And jealous enough to kill.
That's not true. I saw her go out after Harry, and the next thing I knew, she was dead.
So you told us. And so the entire case against Mr. Harry Crocker rested upon your testimony. But you overlooked something.
What was that?
Miss King did go outside to speak to Harry, and they did quarrel. But then he left, and she came back.
Is that true? Not a word. She never came back through that door.
The sleeves and collar of her dress still bore traces of her stage makeup when it was found on her body. Yet she herself wore no makeup at all at the time of her death. We checked that, didn't we, Watson?
Absolutely none, Inspector. Good man, Holmes.
Miss Zaza testified that Miss King didn't have time to remove her makeup before rushing after Harry. Yet how else, then, could she have been found without makeup? Unless she had returned and removed it. And when she returned, Mr. Willis...
Well, you've mixed things up.
Stop him! Don't tempt me, Charlie. I owe you a few as it is.
She played me along till she had the job here. She didn't care about Harry, or about anybody but herself. She deserved what she got.
Take him out.
Holmes, now where's he gone?
Right. I don't know. Well, listen.
Quick, you've done it, Mr. Holmes. You've done it.
Eureka! Yes, I've done it. Now, look. By passing this spring here, I get this little wire, pass it through against the spring-loaded catch on the outside, you see. By pressing it in at an angle of 45 degrees, I release the catch against that thimble, that arm of the thing, and it unlocks automatically. And then, hey...
resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, although he were dead, shall live. And he that liveth and believeth shall not die. Unto Almighty God we commend his body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in sure and certain hope that at the resurrection he will rise again to everlasting life. Amen.
Well, that completes the formal contents of Sir Charles's will. May I be the first to congratulate you, Sir George, as the new heir to Farnsworth Castle?
A mass of crumbling stone and a morbid legend.
Oh, plus an estate with a handsome revenue.
All our legacies were most liberal, Mr. Clarkson. My brother was a generous man.
He was a bully and a braggart.
George, please. Charles is dead now.
He treated you more like one of his hounds than his ward, Sylvia, and you know it.
Henry, you can now do what you've always dreamed of doing. Buy your own medical practice.
£2,000. I'm overwhelmed. I suppose that finishes the will, Clarkson?
Well, not quite, Sir George. Your cousin Charles added a most unusual codicil. Having made many enemies in my life, and suspecting that any one of them may be tempted to bring my earthly days to an abrupt end, I hereby direct, no matter how I die, that Sherlock Holmes be engaged to investigate the circumstances of my death.
Sherlock Holmes?
The detective. But it's absurd. Charles died from a heart attack.
You signed the death certificate yourself, Reeves. I won't allow Holmes to investigate.
I'm afraid Mr. Holmes has already commenced his investigation. A court order was issued this morning.
A court order for what?
The exhumation of Sir Charles's body. The autopsy has been completed. Sir Charles died from arsenic poisoning.
Elizabeth. It's incredible. Who could have done it? Arsenic.
Only one of us? You or I or Henry or Sylvia?
Oh, no. Not Sylvia, no. She had no reason.
She had the same reason we all had. Charles' death set her free just as it set the rest of us free.
Are Holmes and Lestrade still up in the tower room?
Yes, and Dr. Watson is there too.
Why is Holmes so interested in the tower room?
Because Charles died there, I suppose. Or perhaps Mr. Holmes is interested in the legend.
That ridiculous, gruesome legend.
Murder's what I believe in, Holmes, not legends.
Well, you know, Lestrade legends are sometimes put to surprisingly modern uses.
By the way, what is the legend, Holmes?
Well, it dates back to the Wars of the Roses. A sentry fell asleep here one night while on watch. As a result, they chopped his head off. Ever since that time, anyone who sleeps here is supposed to die.
Nonsense.
Quite. And yet Sir Charles slept here, and he did die.
It's a coincidence. He'd already taken the poison. He had to die somewhere.
You know, that window is much too narrow for anyone to get in or out. With that door locked, this place becomes a classic sealed room.
It was arsenic that killed him, Holmes, not the room.
Or the legend.
Or the legend. Dr. Watson, you read the autopsy report. What's your opinion?
Well, there is one thing that struck me as odd. This is January.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Sir Charles had eaten grapes the night he was poisoned.
Well, what's that got to do with it?
Well, you don't very often find grapes in January. Not in England, anyway.
Clever, Watson.
Grapes in January, eh?
Yeah.
Arsenic. Out of this jar. And someone in this room gave it to him. Each of you gained from his death.
We all had access to that jar, Inspector. The arsenic was used for garden spraying.
Anyway, Charles didn't eat or drink a single thing that night. The rest of us didn't.
Then why weren't all of you poisoned too?
Miss Farnsworth, what prompted your brother to sleep in the tower room the night he died?
I prompted him, Mr. Holmes. I challenged him to.
Oh, really? Why?
To put his constant bragging to the test. It started at dinner that night.
And listen, your meals are getting progressively more inedible. If you can't do better, I suggest you find your own home and run it.
I'll try to do better, Charles.
Elizabeth, I liked your dinner. What do you know about decent food? What do you know about anything? I know how to run your estate for you. And a mess you're making of it, too. With half the tenants overdue in their rents. I won't sweat a man's rent out of him, Charles. You'll get the rest of the rents by tomorrow, or out you go, bag and baggage. What have you got to say to that?
I'll collect the rents by noon tomorrow.
Why must you always humiliate us, Charles? Have you no decency, no human feelings?
I'm not a weak knee like George here, if that's what you mean.
Courage isn't always physical, Charles.
Courage? Do you remember the time I locked you in the tower room? You screamed like a stuck pig.
I was 7 years old, not a big, brave man like you.
What do you mean by that?
You dared lock a little boy in that room, but you never dared spend a night in it yourself.
You think I believe that stupid legend?
Yes, and fear it. Just as you fear anything you cannot hear or see or touch. You locked me in to frighten me, because you yourself would have been frightened.
Get me a candle. I'm spending the night in the tower room. But Charles, you mustn't. You're hard. If you were frightened... Don't talk like an idiot, Reeves. Frightened of what? An old wives' tale?
I will fetch him a candle.
I had to break open the tower room next morning. I found him dead.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What kind of grapes were served at dinner that night?
Grapes? No grapes were served. We haven't had grapes in the house for months.
Then who gave Sir Charles the grapes he ate that night? Because he did eat grapes. That's how he was poisoned.
No one gave my brother grapes, Inspector.
You're wrong. The murderer did.
Lestrade, the grapes won't solve your case, you know. The solution lies in the tower room.
Now, look here, Holmes. We've already gone into all that, and
I'm going to find it.
How can you do that, Holmes?
By spending the night in the tower room myself.
Mr. Holmes, I think you are wrong to take the legend of Farnsworth Castle so lightly.
On the contrary, Miss Farnsworth, I'm taking it very seriously.
Then be on guard, Mr. Holmes, and stay awake.
Holmes, how can you possibly solve the mystery here?
Quite simply, Watson. The murderer is going to try and kill me.
Why?
Because I'm Sherlock Holmes.
Can I stay with you?
No, thanks all the same, my boy.
Holmes, if anything happens, you will shout, won't you?
Yes, yes. Loud and strong.
Holmes? Holmes!
Poison. Watson, I'll get you back to my room. Arsenic. Watson, quickly, the antidote. Arsenic? Ah.
Cunning, Watson. Yes, maybe, Holmes, but I don't understand. After all, you and I ate the same thing the entire evening. Watson, I think I know the killer's secret.
Perhaps I'd better go out and wake Holmes.
It is getting rather late. Not that I believe in any of this superstitious nonsense, mind you, but...
But you do believe in murder, eh, Dr. Reeves?
Holmes?
Well, it seems that everyone is surprised at my appearance this morning.
Perhaps relieved is a better word, Mr. Holmes.
I dare say there's somebody who's not very relieved.
What are you talking about?
I was poisoned last night. I am alive this morning, thanks to a bit of good luck and some ingenious foresight on the part of Dr. Watson. On the afternoon that Dr. Watson learned the true cause of Sir Charles's death, he ordered the ingredients of an arsenic antidote from the local chemist. I wonder who, sitting at this table now, is cursing that foresight.
Do we have to be afraid of every bite we put into our mouths?
Not every bite, Sir George. Only food with a flavor strong enough to conceal the taste of arsenic.
Something like grapes, for example. And if you want to know who poisoned the grapes, I can tell you that too. The person who bought the grapes in a London fruit shop on the day Sir Charles died.
I rather imagined you'd trace those grapes, Lestrade. Who did in fact buy them?
Miss Sylvia Taylor.
You're lying.
Let her answer that, Sir George.
Yes. I bought them.
Sylvia.
And gave them to Sir Charles when he was in the tower room.
Yes. But I didn't poison them. I swear I didn't.
For some reason which he did not yet explain, Holmes doubted Lestrade's case against Sylvia Taylor. Furthermore, he reasoned that the killer would take refuge in her arrest, letting the case end there and accepting his own safety. He revealed to me that our only hope was to force the killer into making another move in spite of himself. The first step was publicly to denounce Lestrade's case in such a way that the inspector himself would be convinced that he needed more evidence. This, Holmes hoped, would frighten the killer.
More evidence? You could spend a lifetime going over this place with your magnifying glass.
And I wouldn't even attempt it. But a whole battery of men could accomplish it in a very short time indeed.
Now look here.
A whole battery of men?
Lestrade, how soon do you think you'll get up here sufficient men from Scotland Yard to carry out a systematic and thorough search?
Tonight, maybe. Certainly by tomorrow morning.
Just a moment here. This is my home.
And Lestrade, I think Sir George is going to be rather anxious that they come armed with a search warrant.
I'll get in touch with the Yard immediately.
you're sure no one's left the house?
Bobby on the door said nobody had gone in or out all day.
Well, I hope we haven't been outwitted on this.
It's been a very tiring time, Holmes, watching every move that's being made and getting nowhere.
Yes, we can't afford to let up now, Watson. The pressure's really on him, you know. He's got fear to contend with.
Oh, Holmes, why do you keep crossing to that window? You know, I think it's your pacing up and down all day that's made me more nervous than anything else.
There it is, Watson.
What?
Quickly, Watson, the tower room.
Coming, Holmes.
Watson, would you go downstairs immediately and tell Lestrade to bring our 4 friends up here?
What are you up to?
As I had hoped, the killer has left us all the necessary components of a trap. Well, you better hurry, Watson. We have little time to lose.
Right.
Won't you sit down here?
Just what's the point of this seance exactly, Holmes?
We're going to find a murderer, Lestrade.
Yes, but why here? Perhaps the legend's going to tell us.
Yes, Lestrade. The legend. The weird tale of a headless sentry. And a most convenient one for the murderer, who didn't anticipate an autopsy. Yet why did he choose this room to murder in? What is the mysterious connection between the tower room and death?
Please stop. I don't want to stay here any longer.
I'm sorry, Miss Taylor, but we must stay here and wait. Perhaps all night. Who knows?
But this is insane. I don't feel very well. Could we open the window?
I'll open it for you, Elizabeth. It is getting rather stuffy in here.
Don't bother, Dr. Reeves. I've already tried to open it myself. It's quite impossible.
My head is spinning. You've got to open the window. I feel faint. Please open the window.
I've already told you, Miss Farnsworth. It's quite impossible.
I don't believe you. Reeves, make him open the window.
Elizabeth, calm yourself. It's just this eerie room that's getting on your nerves.
That confounded wind. It's enough to send you out of your mind. Mr. Holmes, can't we settle this downstairs?
Please try to be calm, all of you. As I said before, we may have quite a long wait here.
Let me out of here.
Elizabeth!
Open the window. Do something!
Stop it! Isn't it bad enough without you going off?
You fools! You fools! You don't understand! We've got to have air! For heaven's sake, open the window! Let me go! Let me go! It will kill us all!
It really wasn't necessary to smash the window, Miss Farnsworth. Oh, Watson! There's a package in that drawer behind you. Bring it to me, will you?
Yes, of course.
You see, Miss Farnsworth, I took the precaution of replacing your arsenic candles with harmless ones. Of course, you couldn't be aware of that, could you?
Arsenic candles?
Yes, Lestrade. Like the one that killed Sir Charles.
But Sir Charles died of poisoned grapes.
Oh, no, Lestrade. It was a far more ingenious method of killing than that. A small room, a tiny window, and a candle impregnated with arsenic and giving off fatal fumes.
Ingenious, yes. And it's practical. You can inhale arsenic as a gas.
You see, Lestrade, the person who placed those candles there wasn't going to sit through the night and wait for death. She had to give herself away. I'm sorry to upset all of you, but quite frankly, I didn't know which one of you it was.
But Holmes, why did she choose this room to destroy the candles?
Because this was the only room in the castle that she could be sure would be deserted that night. The legend, you see,